What's up, guys? We finally have some time to work on the car. Over the last few weeks, I've done a few things to the car kind of off camera, nothing that I thought was worthy of making a video about. But the name of the game today is we're going to try and pull out some of this interior to get my suede headliner installed. I also still have the Hotchkiss rear sway bar to get to, and I'll kind of show you why we're going to try and knock them out at the same time. But before that, I'm going to go into a little bit of detail of what I've done over the last 2 or so weeks to make the car a little bit more reliable, so I can actually have some fun with it. We'll start off with a quick overview of what I've been doing to the car for the last few weeks. Basically, I've just been doing some mods to get the car reliable and where I can actually drive it and have fun with it. First thing we did was replace this electronic fuel pump that the car came with a standard mechanical style pump. Basically, long story short, where you have to mount electronic fuel pumps on these cars is on the frame rail, and the gas tank goes significantly below the frame rail on these. So I was having an issue with once the gas got below, about a half of a tank or the same level as the pump was on, it would act like it was out of gas because it didn't have enough, sucking power. I know that's probably not, I guess, suction to actually pull gas out of the tank and then push it. Electronic fuel pumps are a lot better at pushing fuel than they are at pulling it. So I decided, screw all that. I'm just going to go to an original, off-the-shelf, small block Chevy mechanical fuel pump. And I got rid of all of that, used a new sending unit, and pulled it all through, and it works fantastic. I did replace my carburetor as well. If you guys remember, I had this mid-80s Quadrajet on there that had just been pieced together, and I don't know, what's been done to it and who's changed what jets out, and I could just never get it to run, very well at all. So this motor has another life coming up, and what I mean by that is I am going to take this motor and this 4-speed and put it into my Model A at some point in the future. So I was fine with putting a little bit of money into this engine, make sure it's nice and reliable and solid. So I just got an off-the-shelf Edelbrock with a adapter plate to go from the Edelbrock square bore to a spread bore intake manifold, which is kind of the stock intake I have on this car, and it runs great, fires right up. Electronic choke works great. I mean, I've done like just a small amount of tuning for like idle speed and stuff, but other than that, off the shelf, the thing runs just like it should. So really happy with that. It was, a couple of $100 well spent, because like I said, this engine is going to live in another project, so I'm fine with putting a little bit of money into it. I also have done a few other things. So in the same kind of avenue, I guess, of making it reliable, I added some gauges to the inside here. So I put just a standard kind of off-the-shelf coolant temp, voltage, oil pressure. I also added myself a little tachometer, since we didn't have that from when the car was an automatic. That way I can actually keep an eye on the proper coolant temperature and oil pressure, which in these cars factory is literally just an idiot light saying, hey, your car's overheating, or hey, you have no oil pressure, and you don't really know what's going on until something bad happens. So for me to be able to kind of put my finger on the pulse of the engine, so to speak, and make sure it's not having any issues, we actually put in some real gauges for me to monitor. The next thing I did was put a quick ratio steering box in the car. I'll throw a link to this one in the description. It's from a company called Lars, I believe, but I actually ordered it through Advanced Auto Parts, and it's a factory direct replacement steering box, but it is quick ratio. So they come in like 12 to 1 or 12.7 to 1. I went even more aggressive, arguably too aggressive, and went to 10 to 1 ratio, which means the steering is light years faster and more responsive than it was factory. I think the factory on this was like a variable ratio box, and it was somewhere around like 16 to 1. And maybe got down to like 14 to 1 or something like that at speed. And, don't quote me on that, but now it's full-time 10 to 1, so it's a lot stiffer, but that's exactly what I wanted. They recommend these boxes for high-performance pro touring and track use, And even though the car will live on the street most of the time, I do plan to do some aggressive driving. I do plan to autocross the car and you know, hopefully take it to a track at some point too. So I figured I might as well go super aggressive, and I'll be the guinea pig on if I went too crazy or not. But so far I've been really happy with that. It did replace the rag joint and everything as well. Hooked right up to the factory power steering lines. I mean, it was literally a kind of unbolt and bolt in once I got it around my headers. So great product so far. Again, I'll throw a link to that in the description just in case anybody that has a Camaro might be interested in doing that swap. So now that I've rambled for a few minutes about what we've been up to, let's talk about what we're going to do today. All right, today I want to pull these seats out because they're just a little bit too tall. So I'll show you guys what the brackets look like when I get them pulled out. But basically there's 3 mounting points, but how it works on this car is you can't actually use the top 2 mounting points because then the mount just goes right into the floor. So what I need to do is actually cut off the bottom 2 and just have it be, you know, the seat as low as possible. I'm not super tall, I'm about 5'11", but my head is about an inch away from the roof right now, and that's without a headliner. And then again, like I said a little while ago, I do want to track this car eventually, so I'm going to need to be able to wear a helmet in here, and there's no way I'm clearing with a helmet. So seat needs to go down. I also have my thigh hitting the steering wheel when I go for the clutch. So I'd like to be able to bring the seat down and then maybe just a little bit farther forward so that my legs can actually kind of bend past the steering wheel, because this has no adjustment at all. So we're going to pull both the seats out. I'm going to do the passenger seat as well just so that they match. And then I'm going to have to pull them out anyway because we are going to be doing the suede headliner. So the headliner I'm going to be installing is from TMI, and it's a one-piece suede. So it's like a fiberglass back with suede on the front, and then it has the A-pillars and sail panels and whatever else you call them that are suede as well. So the reason I'm doing that is kind of twofold. One, I think it looks really cool. Two, it should be a lot easier to install than a factory headliner. A factory headliner, you have to deal with those individual spines, and it's like amount of gluing, and if you have the windows in, it's even more difficult. And so I figured, hey, I might as well go with a cooler looking option, in my opinion, that should also, in theory, only time will tell, be easier to install as well. So the reason we need to pull the seats out is because I need to get the rear seat out, and then I'm also going to have to pull off these panels. I think I'm going to have to pull off the package tray back there and get that kind of all torn out again so that we can have full access to you know, the whole entire roof. I'm going to make it kind of a twofold deal here because I mentioned earlier I need to install my rear Hotchkiss sway bar. And when you install that, you actually have to drill through the floor underneath where the seat is at. So I figured if I'm going to have the seat out already, I might as well do it all at once. So I'm going to do the whole headliner first, up to the point of installing the rear seat, and then probably, you know, kind of end the video there, and then we'll make another video on doing the sway bar install, just so this video doesn't end up being, you know, 45 minutes long with kind of two theoretically unrelated projects. So, yep, name of the game now is I'm going to pull the seats out. We are going to modify the brackets and then pull the rear seat out and get this ready to install. I need to freshen up on the instructions on this thing and see just how difficult it's going to be. So here's everything that comes in the kit. These are our suede sail panels, A-pillars, and then this is the whole headliner itself. Pretty sweet. Pretty happy with the quality and everything so far. But again, it's one thing to look really nice right now. It's another thing for it to actually install and be a solid product when we actually get it in the car. It does come with full instructions, thankfully. A couple of little spacers. I believe these are for the sun visors. So I'm not going to have suede sun visors. I actually have just brand new factory ones. I'm hoping that those look all right. They didn't have any option that I saw for suede sun visors. So we're going to try it with the factory ones. If it looks silly, I may end up pulling those off and taking them to maybe an upholstery shop and seeing what it would cost to wrap a similar, suede type material on those. But we'll just kind of see how it goes for now. It comes with some mounting screws, again, little spacers. So we're going to read through these instructions, get familiar with them, and then get to work. Looks like we got everything stripped out. A-pillars, all of this trim that goes along the top of the windshield. We got the rearview mirror bracket out. All along here, everything is out. So if you had the factory headliner still installed, there would be what's called wind lace, which is like a little strip, exactly like this. That just peels off. We will need to reinstall some that I bought with a new headliner, but of course mine didn't have a headliner, so we don't have to remove that. Remove the tack strip, obviously these, package tray, the trim that went around the back on this side. Pretty much everything is pulled out now, so if I'm not mistaken, I think it's time to put the headliner in. Actually, there's those little spacers for the sun visors. I think that's the next step, so let's grab those and stick them on. So these are super simple little spacers. They just have two-way tape on one side, 3 holes that match for the sun visor. So we're literally just gonna peel the back of that off to, kind of reveal the sticky side, line the holes up, and stick it on. Basically, this is just to act like a spacer in between the fiberglass and the factory mounts, just so that it kind of fits properly. So super easy, one on each side. We'll peel them and line up the holes and stick them on. All right, this is the part of the installation where we actually put the big headliner piece in the car. It says it recommends having 2 people. I'm that stubborn guy that is kind of trying to do it by myself, which is probably going to make it a little bit more difficult, but we'll see what happens. Basically, you need to kind of get it in place. I already poked a hole through where the rearview mirror mounts. I need to cut little holes right here for the sun visor mounts. Basically, we're going to kind of get it up into place, and then you use these spring clamps to kind of clamp the side of it to hold it in place while you kind of locate the screws and start to actually mount up everything. So I'm going to try to get it into place and kind of see how hard it really is to maneuver while I'm in there, to see if I need to kind of rig up an extra set of hands or something like that. But this thing is super light, so apart from messing it up, I don't think there's really all that much difficulty into it, but I'm saying that now before I try it. I do have some liquid assistant going now, so that'll help. All right, we got it up into place. I think it's lined up pretty well. I did it all by my damn self. So it doesn't really help my stubbornness of anytime something says requires 2 people that I just have to attempt it by myself. But hell, it worked out this time, and no casualties, so pretty stoked on that. Right now I just have it clipped. This is where that wind lace will go, is on that little channel. So I just have it used those 4 spring clips to hold it in place. Now I'm going to cut a little X in the center of where these visor mounts go. I just got some brand new ones because If you guys remember or been following on this car, when I bought this car, the whole interior was completely gutted, so I had none of these parts. But the beauty of building a car that's super popular like a 69 Camaro is all these parts are readily available. So got some replacements, so I'm going to cut some holes, get these into place, screw them in, and then this will be the first thing that will kind of actually permanently attach our headliner to the roof. Got my 2 visor mounts and my rearview mirror in place. Now I'm moving on to the sail panels on the back. They couldn't be easier. There's a little tab on the back of the fiberglass. You just make sure that the headliner tucks under that, and then it basically just pushes into place and will be held on a little bit stronger by that trim panel we took off earlier. But yeah, so that's all you have to do is basically kind of finagle it to get the headliner to slide in this little slot. If you can kind of see what I'm talking about here. And then kind of push it into place. I got the sail panels in, clipped in where they're supposed to be. Now I'm working on the A-pillars. A-pillars are super simple. There's basically like a little ledge right here that basically goes right around this little channel. And then there's one screw hole right through the middle. You can see I already did that one. That you basically drill a small hole into that metal and then run the screw that comes with the kit in there. I don't love the way it looks because there's just like a big silver metal screw right in the middle, so I'm either gonna try and black out, use a little bit of paint or something and black out those screws, or I think I actually may even have some black hardware to use just so they kind of disappear, because why do I want a big shiny Phillips screw right in the middle of my A-pillar? But that's how they mount, so like I said, I'm not totally in love with that, but we can kind of get around it. So let's get to work on the passenger side. I'm back in the garage. It's a couple of days later. I know this video is going to kind of jump around a little bit, and I said I was going to make a video on doing the rear sway bar. Didn't quite work according to plan. I'm going to have to modify the exhaust to put a new sway bar in, and spoiler alert, but I have some plans in the works to replace the drivetrain in this car with LS and some other stuff that we're going to kind of figure out, but I'll kind of leave it at that. So I'm not going to bother modifying the exhaust and doing all of that stuff right now if I'm going to need to just change that in the not too distant future anyway. So we're just going to leave the rear sway bar over there in the box. Some of the people on the internet actually kind of say that it's not needed on these cars. They didn't come factory, or a lot of them didn't come factory with rear sway bars. And with good quality aftermarket leaf springs and good quality aftermarket kind of front suspension, they say unless the car is understeering a lot, it really isn't necessary. So we'll just kind of wait for now. But anyway, my wind lace did come in. This is just some off of Amazon. I haven't tried it yet. If it works, I'll throw the link in the description. But basically what this is to kind of finish the edge all along the side of the kind of headliner here. So I'll show you exactly where we're going to be kind of clipping this on. So it might be kind of hard to see, but got my flashlight here. There is a little lip in the metal, and then the fiberglass for the headliner lines right up to it, and then the suede is a little bit longer than it really needs to be. So we can trim that down and basically fold it up over, and then that creates this little lip right here, and that's what is going to go inside this wind lace. So this will go up there, and I'm going to use like a small hammer and just kind of tap it into place. And the idea is you're just pinching the metal and the actual fiberglass of the headliner with some of the suede and just pinching it all the way along, and that's what really cleans up the whole edge. And it runs all the way from the top of the A-pillar all the way down, and then connects with this sail panel and does the exact same thing. So there's one piece of that rubber wind lace that's going to go all the way down, all the way to this little corner right here. So yeah, we're going to get to work. It's going to be really hard to see, so I'll probably just go ahead and knock out one side and then try to show you guys when it's done. And that is assuming that the size I bought is going to work better than the stuff I had before. So let's try it out. So this worked out perfectly. So I will be throwing the link. Basically, I have an Amazon affiliate link, which means you can click on the link in the description and it will show you kind of all the parts that I use on a lot of my builds that are available on Amazon. So I'll make sure that this wind lace is in there. Because if I'm not mistaken, I think this was like $12 or maybe $15. And the factory wind lace was going to be like $75 or $80. And I think it looks great. So I was able to hammer it on in place, and you know, all the suede kind of tucked in nicely. I used my little auto body hammer because it was the smallest head of a hammer that I had. I tried to use the big rubber mallet, but it's just too big to get in there. And this let me have nice kind of control hammering it on. And it went super duper smooth. So I just cut the end of it off with some dikes, and yeah, no complaints. So I'm going to repeat on the other side, and then we'll be pretty much done with the headliner install. So off camera, I went ahead and threw on my sun visors as well. I totally broke the bracket over here on this side, so I had to do this like ghetto, like super glue kind of situation. Basically, I just did that so that the visor can be in place while I wait for a new one of these to come in, because otherwise I have to keep this bracket in here because that's what helps hold up the front of the headliner. So I'm just going to order another one of those, and preferably not break it the next time. I got the wind lace in on both sides. So we are ready for kind of final reassembly. You might notice there is no dome light. This does have a space to cut one in. My car didn't come with one, and I honestly like the look of not having one better. I do have lights, as you can see right now, underneath the dash that light up, so I do have some interior lights, and I'm fine with not having a dome light. I kind of like like I said, the clean look of it being one solid piece. I have my package tray in. I like to staple this little extra piece down. One, it kind of helps secure the package tray, and two, it makes it easier to put the back seat on without that kind of extra poking up anywhere. So this is just a cardboard piece that goes in behind the rear seat, and I just kind of staple it to that. I'm going to throw the rear panels on. They're super easy. They basically kind of latch over the side here, and then of course we have our window crank that goes through. Our cranks will just snap right back on with a little spring in place. Once we have those two on, we'll throw the back of the back seat on, and then we can throw the bottom of the rear seat. And I still need to modify my actual seat rails themselves and cut off some of those pieces. So I'm going to try to get to that tonight. We'll see. So I'll start to kind of reassemble the rest of this, and we'll see how far we get. Back seat is in, side panels are in. So last operation here is to trim these seat brackets. So this is what I'm talking about. Before, we had it mounted on this bottom hole, and the seat is just a little bit too high. So I can't get low enough to where my legs clear the steering wheel nicely. So I want to lower the seat a little bit. Also, I only had maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the top of my head to the roof, and that was before the headliner was in. So if I put these in right now, I would bet my head would maybe touch the roof or be darn close to it. And if we're going to eventually track the car and stuff, like I said earlier in the video, I'm going to need to wear a helmet in the car, so I'm going to need a little bit more clearance. So I'm going to trim off. I can't just lower it and put the bolts through here because this actually hits the floor. The mount where it goes is so close to the floor that I'm actually going to have to trim the bottom of this bracket off on all 4 corners so that it only leaves this top hole right here, and that's the one we're going to use to mount. As far as I can tell, we're not going to have any clearance issues. I mean, it would be a pretty terrible design on the of these seats if you couldn't run them on the lowest point, but I'm still going to try. I'm trying to figure out if there's any way for me to measure that. I mean, all of the linkage and everything clears this bottom hole, no problem. So I don't think there'll be any issue there. And then where they mount up in the car is to these. There's threads on the inside of these tubes, and that's where a bolt goes through those holes I was just showing you into the end of here, and everything else is lower than that point. So I think it's going to work. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to send it, basically, and cut one of them off. And absolute worst case scenario is it doesn't work. and I have to weld it back on or figure out some other kind of solution, but I'm pretty darn confident it's going to work. So let's get the grinder out and whiz these off. Oh, that's much better. Oh yeah. Sweet. So still not a huge amount of headroom, but it's as low as the seat can get. I'm definitely in a lot better driving position. Before, my thigh was contacting the steering wheel. It's still not perfect, but it's definitely better than it was. Alright guys, it is totally done and installed and vacuumed out. So I found this light, and I obviously, you know, helps you guys kind of see what it looks like a little bit better. So it's really nice. I'm very pleased with how it turned out. It is a lot higher end look than, you know, the stock vinyl, and is obviously light years above the metal I had before. So between the lizard skin, ceramic coating, and the sound insulation, and then fiberglass and suede, we should not have any heat or sound really coming through this roof. Which those of you guys who are familiar with muscle cars, you know that the roof and the transmission tunnel are two places where a lot of heat come through. So far I've felt zero heat coming through the transmission tunnel with that coating. And then this, of course, will help a lot. Only summertime will tell here in Texas of exactly how much it helps, but I'm really excited about it. So you can see the driver's seat. That's how much lower it is than the passenger seat with that cut bracket. So that's how much extra room we got. I would say it's a little bit over an inch, maybe an inch and a half lower. It already bugs me a little bit that the passenger seat is a little bit higher, which I obviously knew that it was going to be the case. So I'm just going to leave it for now and see if it actually bothers me after today. And if it does, I'll pull that seat out and cut those brackets as well. But overall, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So I do still need to order that other visor bracket that I broke to get it like 100% done. But it looks a whole hell of a lot better than it did. Alright guys, that's going to do it for this video. Sorry that it was a little bit jumbled and over a couple of days, and we were going to, you know, it didn't exactly go according to plan, but hopefully you guys still enjoyed it. Next thing on the car, I have a set of Viking double adjustable coilovers on the way. They should be here next week. So I'm going to put those in so that we can raise the front up just a little bit, maybe half an inch to an inch from where it is now. Give the suspension a little bit more room to travel, not bottom out on stuff as much, and then ideally I want to space these front wheels out just a little bit so that they kind of line up with the back wheels. I think they're a little bit too sunken in right now, and I can't push them out right now because of how low the car is. So we're going to throw in the adjustable coilovers so we can dial in the ride height just perfect. Then we're going to go out and get it aligned, and we can finally actually start to drive the car like I've been dying to drive it. So it's finally to the point where I can actually just drive the hell out of it and have fun with it until we kind of dive into the next couple things. So once I have the coilovers in, that's probably going to be the last project on the car just for a little while, because I am dying, and I know you guys are dying for me to start that motorcycle over there. So that is coming up very soon. I have a whole kind of different series in mind and everything that we're going to go with that bike. I'm sorry it's been taking a little while. I've been trying to work out some stuff with a possible sponsorship on the bike to bring you guys some discounts on the parts I'm using, and just trying to, you know, do that YouTube life. So I appreciate you guys watching the video. Make sure to check out my Instagram and all that good stuff, and we'll see you guys soon.